We begin the film by meeting Beth, a woman who likes to tend to her flowers in the garden. She shares a close bond with her sister Abby. After the sad and premature death of their mother, the two began to live together and came to depend completely on one another, with Beth becoming almost a mother to Abby. Their father is alive and loves them, but Beth's presence means more to Abby than he does. The tragedy occurs when Beth is diagnosed with cancer, and the doctors say she does not have much time to live. Desperate to save her, Abby refuses to accept this. She discovers a company testing an experimental treatment that claims to cure cancer, but the cost is far beyond her means. Determined, Abby accepts the dangerous but very well-paid job. Although she is a geologist and everyone advises against it, she does not back down. The narrative shifts to the Georgian Caucasus, a mountainous region of Europe bordered to the north by Russia and to the west by the Black Sea, with sections under Russian occupation. There, Abby is hired to look for uranium, a risky activity, but the job pays very well. After months of work, nothing useful is found. With Beth's health worsening day by day, Abby suggests to her colleague that they investigate further ahead, but he refuses, reminding her that beyond that point begins Russian territory, where they do not have permission. Frustrated, she soon receives a call from her father, outraged at her risky choices. Even so, Abby needs money, and without any advance from the company, she feels trapped. The next morning, after yet another unsuccessful search, Abby insists on entering the nearby forest. The colleague warns her about the presence of wild animals and refuses to accompany her. Abby, however, demands that he hand over the gun, stating that she will go alone. Lacking courage, the man only watches her and then leaves. Inside the woods, a sinister dread surrounds her. Then she notices a strange black stone lying on the ground. Drawn to it, she picks it up and sees that it is something different from anything she has ever seen. Back at the base, she studies the stone in secret. Convinced it might be worth enough to pay for Beth's treatment, she hides it from the company. At that moment, her father calls again, saying that Beth is in critical condition. Abby decides she must return home immediately. She tells her colleague that she may not return, then boards a helicopter, leaving the area. As they fly over, the pilot recalls how he lived there with his family before the Russian forces took control 15 years earlier. Minutes later, Abby notices something strange in the sky, a formation that, from a distance, resembles a flock of birds, but it is not. The object hits the helicopter, shuts down its systems, and causes the crash. Minutes later, she regains consciousness, and she is injured. One of the pilots has already died, and the other is gravely injured. She tries to staunch the survivor's wounds and activates the radio, but the device is unusable. Isolated in a desolate region, she realizes that rescue is unlikely, and panic begins to set in. Consulting the map, she sees that the nearest road is about 60 kilometers away, a difficult journey. She cares for the pilot as best she can and lights a fire in hopes of being spotted, but the night passes without help. In the morning, the second pilot also dies, leaving Abby alone and in panic. Aware that she will not survive if she stays there, she gathers supplies from the wreckage, including a gun, determined to return to Beth at any cost. As she departs, she hears static and follows the sound until she finds a working walkie-talkie among the pilot's belongings. The device still emits faint signals. Using the helicopter's battery, she recharges it and soon picks up a voice. It is John, another survivor of the crash. Relieved, Abby listens as he says that he also crashed in that area. He describes a lake surrounded by dense forest, but says his leg is trapped and he has lost sensation in parts of his body. His long-range antenna is broken, which makes rescue impossible unless someone can reach him. Abby checks the map and finds a lake about 30 kilometers to the north. She decides to head there, hoping to use John's radio to call for help. John discourages her, insisting she should head south. Going north is dangerous, and he doubts the equipment will even work. Even so, Abby takes the risk. The path to the south would take too long, and she needs to return to Beth. The terrain is rough and mountainous, which slows her progress. John keeps in contact over the radio, asking questions. When she says she is a geologist, she hears from him the assumption that she would be looking for uranium, which surprises her. Abby then talks about Beth's illness. John, also a pilot, hints that he participated in some mission, but avoids details. She then continues her journey through the difficult mountainous area. As night falls, Abby improvises a shelter to rest. Once again, she examines the strange black stone she brought with her, and, to her shock, it moves and changes shape in the palm of her hand, as if it were alive or some kind of advanced technology. The discovery terrifies her. Meanwhile, John's calm remains disconcerting. Despite being trapped and injured in a remote region, he speaks as if he does not fear death. The next morning, Abby continues her arduous walk. Fatigue and John's constant chatter begin to wear her down. At one point, she snaps at him, saying the radio battery will run out if he continues to talk without interruption. That day, Abby faced a new challenge. She had to climb a steep cliff. At one point, the climb became very difficult, and she told John. He said that if she wanted to turn back, he would understand. He reminded her that she had already tried and said he hoped her sister would recover. But when Abby replied that Beth was not getting better, John said that she could not save everyone. That irritated Abby. She says she did not need advice at that difficult moment. She just needed to keep going. John replied calmly, telling her to do what she thought right. Now Abby had to face the dangerous climb ahead, knowing it would be extremely difficult. While climbing, Abby suddenly heard John say something strange. The phrase, "You are my favorite." It sounded odd, but after that, he fell silent. Abby did not pay much attention and continued climbing. The object she was using for support slipped and fell. Then, deprived of any piercing instrument, she immediately remembered the enigmatic stone capable of remodeling itself, quickly shaped it, and fit it into a hole, using it as a support to pull herself up. She even shaped it into a rope, which she carried as she climbed higher. Finally, she reached the top of the mountain. The strange stone had already surprised her, but she had no time to stop. Looking through her binoculars, she spotted the dark objects again and, in the distance, clearly saw a military base. Before moving on, she lit a fire and marked an arrow on the ground so that, if anyone came looking, they would know where she had gone. But when she began to descend back, John contacted her again. He warned that she was going into enemy territory and that, if she entered, she would be shot on sight. John said no help would come from that direction. Upon hearing this, Abby became very frightened. Suddenly, her foot slipped and she tumbled down the slope, badly injuring her leg. With no thought of stopping, she tied it tightly with a cloth and continued. A little further ahead, she finds an area of abandoned houses. The cold is intense, and Abby enters one of the houses to spend the night. Hungry, she found some food, but it was spoiled. That night, she treated the wounded leg and took a dose of morphine. The next morning, upon waking, she heard a sound. When she checked, she saw a Russian soldier nearby. Frightened, she hid quickly. The soldier proved suspicious and entered the house to search. Abby had a gun, and as soon as he entered, she pointed it at him. Fear took over and she shot his leg, although he had no intention of hurting her. He grabbed his rifle and demanded her backpack. To her surprise, inside was the same kind of strange stone she carried. Then, through the soldier's radio communicator, a man named Ivan spoke. Abby realized that Ivan and John were the same person, changing names while conversing with her. Somehow, everything was connected to the stones. Hearing John's voice, Abby asked furiously who he really was, but he did not answer. Then, she threw the radio away. She then helped the wounded soldier and told him he should take her to the base if he wanted her help. The soldier, who was lost while seeking shelter, agreed. Even John was in contact with him, although his true intentions were still uncertain. They could not understand each other's languages, but both knew they needed one another. According to Abby, the path now led them to the lake. Abby helps the soldier walk, although each step causes her pain. Perhaps she had not even shot him, but John had planted fear in her mind about the Russians. At one point, when they stopped to rest, Abby threw the stone away in anger. Then she told the soldier they had to keep going. They advanced, but soon the ice beneath them weakened and the soldier fell into the water. Hearing his screams, Abby ran to help, but she also slipped into a hole. Somehow she managed to pull herself out, desperately crying for help, but no one came. Soaked and cold, Abby removed her wet clothes, trying to warm up. It was then that she heard John's voice on the radio again. Furious, she ripped out the battery and threw it away, but strangely he could still speak to her. Eventually, Abby fell asleep. She dreamed of happy and wonderful moments she had spent with her sister while they were still together. Upon waking, she heard the sound of a helicopter. Summoning her strength, she rose and walked toward the forest, believing that rescuers might have arrived. But Abby was already too weak. As she advanced, she suddenly fell into a cave. There was a thermal spring in the place, and Abby's body floated in it. Beside her, inert floating, there was a corpse completely worn away by time. It was the body of a soldier, and on his tag the name John was written. Then the particles of the stone began to stick to Abby's body. Shortly thereafter, Abby loses consciousness, and minutes later when she woke up, she was in a strange place where the same stones floated around her. Then she heard John's voice saying how 65 years earlier he had also become trapped in that place, and that is how he found it. Abby also understood that the accident was not an accident. It was intentional. These stones were either advanced alien technology or some form of advanced life. They had been on Earth for a long time, and either were imprisoned there or lived there by choice, but needed humans. But unlike the aliens shown in other films, they were not so malevolent. They did not take human bodies by force, but were beyond human comprehension. John had surrendered to them. Abby saw his body made by the stones. He said he almost died, but by surrendering everything to them, surprisingly, he remained alive. He says he is a survivor, like Abby, explaining that he had incorporated himself into the complex system. And now Abby was also being given a chance, but Abby refuses. She says she did not want to be part of that. She wanted to return home. And then she saw her home, her sister, and everything was very good, like a perfect life. But that was not real. It was only an artificial world created by that advanced system, and Abby knew it. Still, she reunited with her sister and spoke from the heart. In the end, that which she had not accepted until then, the acceptance of death, she finally understood that death is also part of life. The alien life form strove to make Abby surrender voluntarily, but Abby did not agree and opened the door of her house. When the door opened, she walked into a blizzard, and then flashes were shown that gave the impression that Abby had been rescued. Then Abby opened her eyes in an apartment. It was her co-worker's home. He said she had been rescued, but Abby still wanted to return home, to her sister. The next day, she returned home, however. Her sister drew her last breaths, and, in those final moments, Abby and her father were with her.